In 1610, a simple glass tube let one man see moons circling another planet, and that discovery almost ruined his life. Galileo Galilei looked through a homemade telescope and found mountains on the moon, moons around Jupiter, and evidence that the Earth wasn't the center of everything. The people in power called it heresy. How did a few lenses start a fight between observation and authority and change the world forever? Welcome to a story where science and belief collided head-on. Today, we're diving into Galileo's telescope, the invention that didn't just change astronomy. It changed human history. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this small device shook the foundations of the most powerful institution of the time, the Church. You'll see how one man's courage to look up at the stars challenged centuries of tradition, sparked a revolution in knowledge, and redefined humanity's place in the universe. So, let's step back into the early 1600s, a world where Earth was thought to be the unmoving center of everything, until one Italian scientist dared to prove otherwise. Chapter 1: Galileo's World. Before the telescope in the early 1600s, Europe was a place of rigid belief. For centuries, people trusted the geocentric model, the idea that Earth stood fixed at the center of the universe, while everything else revolved around it. This belief wasn't just science. It was theology, philosophy, and culture wrapped into one. The Church supported it, schools taught it, and ordinary people accepted it as truth. But cracks were already appearing. Decades earlier, Nicolaus Copernicus had proposed a shocking idea. The sun, not the Earth, was at the center of the cosmos. His book was whispered about in intellectual circles, but without proof, it was easy to dismiss. This was the world Galileo was born into, a brilliant mathematician and professor in Italy, curious, bold, and unafraid to question. Yet at this time, he had no way to challenge the accepted order. That would change in 1609. When news reached him of a strange new Dutch invention, a tube with glass lenses that could make distant objects appear closer. Galileo immediately saw more than a military tool. He saw a window to the heavens, and what he built would shake every foundation of human knowledge. But what exactly did Galileo see when he pointed his telescope at the night sky? The answers would stun his world and put him on a collision course with the most powerful institution of his time. Chapter 2: The Shocking Discoveries Through the Telescope. When Galileo finally turned his handmade telescope toward the night sky, the universe revealed secrets no one had imagined. First, the moon. For centuries, scholars described it as a perfect, smooth sphere, flawless and divine. But Galileo saw something else: craters, valleys, and towering mountains. The moon was not perfect at all. It was rugged, scarred, and strangely Earth-like. Then he looked at Jupiter. To his astonishment, 4 tiny points of light circled the giant planet. Night after night, he watched as they moved in orbit. These were not stars, they were moons. Moons orbiting Jupiter. This meant not everything revolved around Earth, a direct blow to the old geocentric model. Galileo didn't stop there. He observed the phases of Venus, which only made sense if Venus orbited the Sun, not the Earth. He saw countless stars in the Milky Way, invisible to the naked eye, suggesting a universe far larger than anyone had dreamed. Each discovery was like a hammer strike against centuries of accepted wisdom. Galileo wasn't just looking at the sky, he was rewriting the universe. But new knowledge doesn't always bring celebration, instead of applause. Galileo's findings lit the fuse of one of history's most dramatic clashes: science versus authority. Chapter 3: Galileo versus the Church. At first, Galileo's discoveries created excitement. His drawings of the moon and the Medicean stars, the moons of Jupiter, spread quickly across Europe. Scholars, nobles, even princes wanted to peer through his telescope. For many, it was like seeing the universe for the first time. But not everyone was impressed. To the Church, Galileo's findings weren't just science, they were dangerous. If Earth wasn't the center of creation, what did that mean for centuries of scripture and theology? The idea threatened not only religious doctrine, but the authority of those who enforced it. Galileo argued passionately that his observations were not opinions, but facts anyone could see through a telescope. Yet many church scholars refused to look, claiming the device itself was trickery. Some even mocked him, saying the moons of Jupiter were illusions. In 1616, the Church took its first official step. The Copernican model, the Sun at the center of the solar system, was declared formally heretical. Galileo was warned to stop teaching it as truth. He kept silent publicly, but privately, his belief in a heliocentric universe grew stronger with every observation. For years, he walked a tightrope, balancing his loyalty to the Church with his devotion to science. But in 1632, he pushed too far. Galileo published dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, a book that cleverly mocked defenders of the old Earth-centered model. It was witty, brilliant, and dangerous. The Church saw the book as open defiance. Galileo was summoned to Rome, tried by the Inquisition, and forced to defend his life's work. So, what happens when truth collides with power? Galileo's trial would become one of the most dramatic moments in the history of science, and its outcome still echoes today. Chapter 4: The Trial and Its Consequences. In 1633, Galileo stood before the Roman Inquisition, a court of the Church known for its severity. Here was a man in his late 60s, frail in body but sharp in mind, defending discoveries he believed anyone could verify with a telescope. The judges, however, were not concerned with lenses and moons. They were concerned with obedience. Galileo's dialogue was accused of promoting the forbidden Copernican model as truth. Under immense pressure, facing the possibility of torture or execution, Galileo had little choice. He was forced to recant, to publicly deny what his eyes had clearly seen. According to legend, as he rose from his knees after recanting, he whispered the famous words, "E per se, move, and yet it moves." Whether he truly said it or not, the phrase became a symbol of quiet defiance, of truth outlasting authority. Galileo was sentenced to house arrest for the rest of his life. He was forbidden to publish. his movements restricted. Yet even in confinement, he continued to write, study, and explore. His work on motion and physics would lay the groundwork for later scientists, especially Isaac Newton. Galileo's trial sent a chilling message. Challenging authority could cost you your freedom, but it also revealed something greater. That once new ideas are released into the world, they cannot be silenced forever. But here's the twist. Galileo's punishment did not bury his ideas. Instead, it fueled a revolution in science that would spread across Europe and change the course of history. Chapter 5. Galileo's Legacy and the Big Payoff. Galileo spent his final years confined in his villa outside Florence. Blind in his later days, but never defeated in spirit. He died in 1642. The same year, a boy named Isaac Newton was born, the man who would carry Galileo's torch into the future. Though silenced in life, Galileo's ideas only grew louder. His telescope had opened humanity's eyes to a vast, complex, and beautiful universe. His insistence on observation and evidence over authority became the foundation of modern science. Centuries later, the Church itself would acknowledge its mistake, honoring Galileo as a pioneer who was right all along. Today, when we launch space telescopes, explore distant galaxies, or even use a smartphone's navigation system, we are living in the world Galileo helped to build. The real clash wasn't just Galileo versus the Church. It was old tradition versus new discovery, fear versus curiosity. And history shows us which side won. So, what does Galileo's telescope teach us today? That even the simplest tool in the hands of a curious mind can change everything. And that no matter how powerful the opposition, truth has a way of surviving. And that was the story of Galileo's telescope, a story of courage, discovery, and the price of speaking truth to power. His struggle reminds us that progress often comes with resistance, and that real breakthroughs aren't just about science. They're about standing up for what you know to be true. Here on Decoding History and Science, we bring you the stories that shaped our world, the forgotten battles, the hidden discoveries, and the moments when human curiosity rewrote history. If this journey into Galileo's life opened your mind, just imagine what else we'll uncover together. So, here's what you can do to be part of this community. Hit that like button if you believe knowledge should never be silenced. Subscribe to the channel, Decoding History and Science, so you never miss the next big story where history and science collide. And don't just watch, join the conversation. Drop a comment below. What do you think Galileo's greatest lesson is for us today? Is it courage, curiosity, or the determination to keep asking questions, even when the answers make people uncomfortable? Your thoughts help keep this community alive, and your support helps us keep exploring. So, until next time, keep questioning, keep discovering, and remember, the universe is far bigger than we ever imagined. Thanks in part to a man named Galileo.